Welcome to the Golf Report podcast. Today I'm joined by Allison Wallace, who is tournament manager for the Hawaii State Junior Golf Association. Allison, thank you for joining me. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. Yeah, thanks for joining me. So just tell me, you're in Hawaii. You live in, is it Honolulu? Is that correct?
Yes, we're actually based right out of Honolulu. So I'm sitting in our office right outside Waikiki right now, getting ready for our workday.
Nice. So just how are things, and how is it living in Hawaii for you?
It's definitely very different. I'm sure
Hmm.
we'll touch base on it. I've grown up in Georgia, so I
Okay.
transitioned here in August. But it's really amazing being here. We just started our tournament season, so it's really going into full swing right now of everything getting started. And the crazy thing about being in Hawaii is with the weather the way it is, you have a full year tournament season. So yeah, getting started and it's going really good.
Nice. So yeah, how's the weather typically? And do you get to like to the beaches or things like that in Hawaii?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm not at the golf course, I'm probably at a beach or on a hike.
Okay.
You it kind of drove me crazy when I first moved here that it was really sunny and 75 every single day. And you almost don't believe it, but genuinely every day it's pretty much sunny and 75. And you'll get like a winter month like December from at least my experience here. It was kind of rainy. It might drop into the 60s, but that's about it.
Nice. Yeah, I grew up in Arizona, so I know the good weather, and I live in Connecticut where weather's not so great, but so I've seen both
Yeah.
sides of it. So you're a tournament manager for the Hawaii State Junior Golf Association. So can you just tell me
Yes.
more about the Hawaii State Junior Golf Association? Also, just tell
Um,
me, about your position as tournament manager.
Yeah, so there's a lot. We could totally dive into so many different things.
Mhm.
The Hawaii State Junior Golf Association was, I think it's 26th year now. So we're
Okay.
on, it has to be longer than that. But um, yeah, we've been around for a long time. My boss, Mary B. Porter King, is like one of the founding members of this organization, an absolute golf legend, literally the best person in the world to be a leader, to be a mentor, to be a friend. So it's just such a big opportunity to be here and to be led by her and the things that she's created for this organization. But I always think her main goal and our motto is developing tomorrow's leaders one swing at a time, um, and developing our future leaders one swing at a time is actually, and that's really what this organization is all about, is just taking the kids and using golf to facilitate them for a better future, a brighter future, and letting them play golf in the cheapest or like in the really most expensive way possible, but at a high level. And so I really think that's what this organization is about, is just putting together some of the best golfers in the state and giving them an experience that is unlike any other, giving them competition, giving them like things that are going to make them grow, and just really propelling this organization and propelling them as like not only golfers but as people, and then doing that at just a really low cost to be able to get them to spend money on other things in their future. So
Nice. That's
that's in
awesome.
a shell
Hmm.
our organization. And then I guess specifically for my position, I am our tournament manager. So my goal is to put together tournaments all across. I think this is where we're really unique. So I put together tournaments across different islands. So it's all the same part of the state, but I work to manage, plan, communicate, run all the different events across all four different islands. So yeah, it's really unique, but it's fun. And that's pretty much my main role, is a lot of like overseeing and planning for all of our events.
Nice. So as you mentioned, you're from Georgia. You know, it's probably very different being in Hawaii. So I'm interested to know, you grew up in Georgia. How did you end up with the Hawaii State Junior Golf Association? What's it been like, moving out to Hawaii and living there? And then just touch more on, what are your main duties and responsibilities as tournament manager? What do you do, when there's a tournament, and then what
Mm-hmm.
do you do when there's not a tournament, when you're just working in the office like you are right now?
Yeah, so that's actually some really good questions. So to start, I actually just graduated from the University of Georgia last May, so May of 2023. I graduated with a degree in public relations and sport management, or a minor in sport management. Um, yeah, growing up in Georgia was definitely very different than what it is here. I grew up playing junior golf, and I always kind of saw people in my position, and I was like, wow, like there's people that get paid to put on golf tournaments and watch people play golf all day long. And so I always kind of knew what it was. And, it's very a niche field and unique position. So if you weren't familiar with it before, you probably wouldn't be familiar with it. So luckily I was. And when I graduated, I was just searching for jobs, I knew what I kind of wanted to do, and this was kind of it. But I never imagined that I'd be in Hawaii. And then all of a sudden, one day I applied and I actually got an interview back. Didn't expect that I ever would. And I got the job and said yes, came out here, moved. It was definitely a big shock when I first got out here, very different of just the culture is really different. And I think that's honestly one of the most beautiful things. And that it's just also very different. Everyone's a lot more laid back. And of course, the weather's very different as well. So it was definitely a kind of a difficult transition for me, but also transitioning from being a student to now stepping into my first like full-time role of not being a student anymore was a little bit difficult, but it's really taught me to grow and learn and just push myself outside of my comfort zones. So that's a little bit about my transition being in Georgia to here. And then specifically about my role. So whenever I guess like a day to day for me is really kind of crazy. So I don't, whenever we don't have tournaments, I do kind of fall like I am in more in the office, but it's like we actually have an event this week.
Okay.
So with an event this week, right now, the event actually closed last week. So now I've just got to do all my prep for it. So you would never imagine how many things go into a golf tournament that actually go into a golf tournament. So on top of all, we use Golf Genius software. So on top of everything we're doing in Golf Genius, and putting together all the things for the actual tournament. Now it's like, okay, one day you have to go and survey the course. And it's like, putting together your NTP, your notice to players, so your NTP, and just making sure that matches all the rules that are on our hard card that we might need to use. All the communications that have to go with the parents and making sure they get all their pairings and all the kids show up on time, making sure that we get all the payments done, making sure that we're in contact with the course, that the course knows everything that's happening. So it is a lot of moving pieces of, okay, now you've got to make sure that 62 people know where they need to be at this time and place. And also the other 20, 30, 40 people at the golf course need to know. And then also everyone in our organization needs to know. So a lot of my role is the management and the communications between all these different people, all these different moving pieces. So I think that's really cool. So that's probably my main thing this week, of making sure that everyone is in the right place at the right time for the right things. And then outside of that is a lot of, we rely on volunteers very heavily for our organization and our positions in our tournaments. So technically the way that runs is because as a tournament manager, I'm the one overseeing everything that's happening in a tournament. So if there's issues that come up and we have, for example, if there's a kid who gets sick and we need to they need to withdraw or they need something out on the course, I'm the one who has to go and oversee that or go help in that specific situation. So if I'm running all the positions that we have our volunteers doing, I can't necessarily go and help, or I can't make sure that we're getting all our course fees paid, or that the course knows. So a lot of my role is, again, those communications, those different lines. So yeah, that's pretty much my main thing. And then when you're actually at the tournament, you're the one making sure, okay, is the starter getting kids off in time? Are the kids, we also run a lot of our events, they're very official, so they have to keep up with their pace of play. They have 4 checkpoints that they have to meet. And if they don't meet those 4 checkpoints, like, you're going to get a red card. Like, 1 red card's a warning, 2 red cards, a 2-stroke penalty, 3 red cards is a 3-stroke penalty, and then 4 is a disqualification. So we run at a very high level of making sure that they're staying up to date. So it's also my role. Are all our checkpoint volunteers making sure our kids are staying up on pace of play? Are they giving them the red cards when they need? And then I'll also help with the scoring. So then when they come in, and my main role is making sure that all the scorecards get turned in, that those are official, that everything is signed. And then, yeah, so that's in a nutshell what my job looks like. It's kind of crazy and a little bit all over the place, but it's really fun. So
Nice. Mhm. 2 questions that I thought of that I wanted to, touch on. So obviously you grew up in Georgia. It's a far,
mhm.
Georgia and Hawaii, they're very far apart. Hawaii is not in the continental US. So, was your family supportive of you moving out to Hawaii, for this position, or were they pretty hesitant? Like, they're like, oh, Hawaii, that's not in the continental US. That's very far away from Georgia.
I think they were very supportive of it. And I think it was mainly because I had also just, I've always been kind of the kid. I have an older brother, and he's more of a homebody. And I've always been the other kid that was like, I'm a free spirit. So you've probably seen on my resume, I spent 1 summer in New Mexico.
Mhm.
I did that also on a whim. I was supposed to study abroad and it got canceled. So I just
Okay.
went and studied or worked in New Mexico. And then I spent another summer in Houston. And then I moved out here. So it was definitely scary, but I think my family definitely found a lot of excitement in it, knowing that I got to actually graduate college. And, not many kids graduate college and have a position that they're really excited about. And much less like a position in Hawaii. So that was really cool. And my family was really supportive of my move out here and helping me transition and just get acclimated to everything.
Nice, but I'm sure you miss your family. I'm sure you don't get to see them really that much.
Yeah, no, they came out here for Christmas, which was really
Okay.
great to see everyone, but I definitely don't see them that much. And I have no idea when I'm going to go home next to see them. Probably
Okay.
won't see them again until Christmas or Thanksgiving.
Oh,
But technology nowadays, I get to stay in touch and, it makes it so much easier.
nice. So I'm also interested to know, you work for the Hawaii State Junior Golf Association. Obviously, when you think of juniors, you think of, college recruiting and, getting to,
Mm-hmm.
the next level of playing college. How do you get your juniors, how is the junior golf, scene in Hawaii, first off, and then second, how do you get, exposure for your junior players? Because I know it's probably tough to get, college coaches to come all the way out there to Hawaii to watch, juniors. How do you get, ensure that, your junior players are getting the exposure that they deserve from college coaches that are, out there in the continental US?
So the biggest things for us are we really work to get the kids their exposure. So of course, with kids living in Hawaii, you can't always
Mhm.
travel back to the mainland for
Yeah.
events. So that has been one big concern of ours. So we've worked with organizations like AJGA and Junior Golf Scoreboard, anything you can think of to put together positions where it's like all of our tournaments get recognized by these other organizations so that our kids, whenever they're playing in these events, can now be posted on AJGA and that through we can meet requirements through AJGA so our events are recognized and they can receive like their performance based stars like the Peavers points so that they can compete because living here you can't always get that recognition. So we've done a lot to make sure that our kids receive that recognition. We also just with like such a high level, the one thing that I think is really unique about Hawaii is that we produce a lot of great players. As you can see, like Allison Corpuz, who just won the U.S. Women's Open
Mhm.
this past year, was an alumni of HSJGA. So is Michelle Wee. Um, so we're producing a lot of players out here, and it is just making sure that they get noticed. So it is a lot of um, a lot of the kids are surprisingly they come to us and they're like, "Hey, I have a bunch of college coaches that want to come and like watch me play." So it's a lot of too of making sure that those college coaches are come and they're welcomed and like we're building those connections with them. A lot of them too are we've had a few meetings this past week with just a few different colleges of like, hey, if you would be interested in recruiting any kids or getting them out there. So it's a lot of just like making sure you have the right contacts and that while they can't go and play in those events, like making sure that our events are recognized by those college coaches and they're seeing that we've got these top of the line players and making sure that they're getting that exposure from our organization and the ways that they're playing. So that's pretty much main goal number one. And then number two is then getting in contact with like those other coaches or helping promote them or anything along those lines. And we do a lot of like college workshops. And if you even notice, like our page has a big thing where we've interviewed several college coaches or yeah, actually several college coaches and they get to hear like what do we look for in the people. So we've got like these firsthand videos and these experience with these coaches. And, when you have that knowledge of them too, now we also have this contact to say, hey, here's some of our juniors. Like this is what they're playing, like making sure that all our scores get posted, making sure that we're trying to like do a better job with our social media. So like all of that is getting shared. Yeah, so really just basing a lot of that for our juniors on the exposure and the contacts. And I think that is like our number one priority for our up and coming college kids.
Nice.
Or yeah.
Um, And then one more question I had about this topic. So
Mm-hmm.
especially for your top players, on your junior tour out there in Hawaii, do you see that they typically stay in Hawaii once you just play Hawaii tournaments, or do you see that they travel to the continental U.S. when they can?
No, they definitely travel to the continental US. So we've got
Okay.
a lot of our juniors that will play in qualifying events in the continental US, but we
Mhm.
also have some really cool events. So we sponsor some team events every year as well. So we've got like, for example, we've got the Junior America's Cup and the Girls Junior America's Cup. I don't know if you've
Okay.
ever heard of those,
Yeah.
but those are two big team events normally in the like West Coast. But we take part in that and we'll send our top players to go play in that event. And last year, our girls for Girls Junior America's Cup actually won. And so Team Hawaii won the event, which was really cool. But now we're sponsoring them to go to the mainland and play and like represent not only HSJGA, but who they are and the golfers they can be and, get that access out there. And we also do like tend to provide some scholarships and we do have some stipends for kids who do want to go play mainland golf and get that experience and because it is just a totally different world than it is here. But we want to make sure that they're getting that and they have that opportunity to grow.
Nice. Yeah, getting exposure. Living in Hawaii might be more difficult, but it's great that everyone at the HSJGA is really supportive of all your junior
Yeah.
players. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's definitely a cool organization to be a part of.
Allison, so let's get back into talking more about you. So I want to get into, you growing up. So you grew up in Georgia. Tell me a little bit about that. What that was like for you. Just tell me, where did you attend high school? And then, growing up, what, activities or hobbies were you involved in, growing up?
Yeah, so growing up, I grew up in a small town in the middle of nowhere, Georgia. I mean, I
Okay.
don't know, you probably have never heard of it. It's called Dublin, Georgia. Probably a population of 20,000 people. The closest city was, you could say Atlanta or Savannah, but both were 2 hours away. So that was like I grew up really where everything around you was like, what are you doing outside? Like, are you being active? Things going up. And so I picked up golf. That was I more or less didn't pick up golf. My dad made me play golf and I
Okay.
hated it as a kid, as a junior. I was like, this isn't fun. Nobody's playing. It's not cool. And then as I got into high school, I was like, wait, this is actually pretty cool. And I'm actually pretty good. Um, and that's when golf pretty much became my hobby. And that was what I did all the time. So when I wasn't playing golf, I was working in like I would then go volunteer at our course and I would help run some junior clinics, or then I finally got like a good private coach. And so when I wouldn't take lessons, I would go help with his lessons and I would shadow him and what he did. And then I would help them run their summer camps and do all these things. So golf was a lot of my life. And then I will say, like, when I wasn't playing golf, I was really involved with like my church community. So that was like a really big thing. And then I would just spend time with my friends. We were like, since it was a small town, you had like a good community of people, and everyone would just like, since there was nothing to do, you would just hang out with each other. You would just spend time with different people. Um, and that was like what a lot of growing up was for me, was just learning different people and meeting different people and really just learning to communicate and learning to grow and put yourself in uncomfortable situations and make the most of what you have. And I feel like that's probably the best ways to like define like what my childhood was and what that was to like what it was in Georgia for me of, community was probably one of the biggest things then. And it's probably one of the biggest things for me now. And yeah, that's really helped me transition and just grow throughout my life and taught me a lot.
Nice. So you attended college, at University of Georgia, where you studied public relations in the College of Journalism and Mass Communication. Just tell me about, attending Georgia, how your time at Georgia was, and just, tell me why you ended up, wanting to study public relations.
Yeah, that's actually a great question. So I actually toyed with I didn't play college golf. Um, I was no great golfer, but I was good. I could hit the ball, I could play. So I actually toured schools far and wide across the US, a lot of smaller schools. And then I kind of decided not to play last minute. It got down to like mid-April and I just didn't know if I wanted to do it. Um, and so I took a step back and just reevaluated everything and I'd gotten into Georgia, and Georgia, the state of Georgia offers a really good scholarship program. So if you make like a certain SAT score and you keep a certain GPA, all your in-state tuition gets paid for. So all my in-state tuition was paid for all 4 years of college.
Okay.
So once I received that scholarship, I kind of thought it was really a no-brainer. Even with the golf scholarship at a different school, it was still probably out of state. It was still way more expensive.
So what
So
tournaments
I
do you
kind of
enjoy getting
decided
to
on
play in?
Georgia. and I'm actually really glad that I went there.
Oh,
I
good
went in with a
question.
public
Obviously I
degree
don't really try to
as a
qualify for the women's
freshman,
exam
and
as
I
much
never
as I
changed it. The
used
only thing
to,
I
but
ever did was added on a sport
it
management
eventually
minor, and I think that
when
was
women's
maybe still
mid-am
midway
fall
through
in life when
freshman
we're
year.
traveling, I would definitely
I kind of went
qualify
that
for
route
that. I've
because
had an
I
assistant in
always
the
knew I
past
wanted to
do
work in
that.
golf, but I
I
said, well, if
love
I
the
ever
stroke
change
play
my
in
mind,
the
like I
women's
wanted
state am
degree
here
that's a
is
little more
match play.
flexible.
Love
So
match
if you
play. It's
look
one of my
back to
favorites.
any of
So
my
yeah,
previous
just a handful of
projects
state
or
and local. I
anything I
played a
ever did
couple
in
scrams
college,
this
it was
summer.
pretty much all centered
I
around the
also
game
just
of
enjoy
golf.
playing and
That's
meeting
what I
other
did for
women. It's just a
everything.
great way, and
Sorry,
there's nothing
there's
that bonds people quicker than
background
golf.
going on. Um,
Does UAB
that
have a
was pretty
home
much what
course,
I
and
did my
how
whole
do you
life,
like to
was
structure
wanting to do
practices for your
golf.
team in
But
qualifying?
yeah, so I did public
Yeah,
relations, and
yeah.
I
I
decided
mean,
that was what I
we
wanted to
have.
do.
I mean, as
And
you know,
going to
there's
college
a
there
lot
was
of
honestly
really
such
good
a good
golf here.
experience. I was
Here
kind of a
there's
little bit
6 or 7
further away
different golf
from
courses
home,
that
so I
we
was
can
about
play.
two
I'd
and a
say our
half
main
hours
one's
away from
Oxmoor
home,
Valley.
so I could still go back
And
if
we
I
have
needed
we have
to.
a small facility
But
there.
I was far enough
Ooh,
away where
excuse
I
me.
didn't feel like I had to go back all the time, or
And
that I
let's
had my
see.
space and it allowed me to grow up.
You know,
But yeah,
we
college was
play usually
definitely
3 days
a
a
fun
week,
time.
practice three
I
days a week,
was
and it kind of
COVID
splits.
happened when I was a freshman,
That's
so
probably the
I
best
got
way.
kicked
We
out
do a lot
freshman year
of
and had to go home.
drill work, but
And
also
then
individual
after
work. I mean, my
COVID,
assistants
it
and I are
was
there to
kind of
really help
probably
facilitate
didn't
as much
even
as
get
we
back to
possibly
normal
can.
until midway through my junior year. So my freshman and sophomore year were pretty much
So what
like
makes a
my COVID
recruit stand out
years,
to you in addition to
all
good scores,
online,
high
all
finishes can
either
refer
at
to any
home
coach,
or in an
you know,
apartment. And those were
and
really
winning
difficult.
trophies
But
and, shooting
luckily,
low
with
scores
my
in tournaments for
major, it
games
is
like
a
the SIG.
lot of working
But
with
what
people
stands
and
out to
working with
you just generally
organizations. So that like really
and
kept me
makes someone,
involved and like
want to
wanting to do
be
more.
in your team, like
Yeah.
represent the UAB players as well, being
Um,
that so
so
they
I'm
have a
interested
good
to
work
know,
ethic, that they're dedicated,
you
that they just have
interned
a good
with Angel
personality, or
Fire Resort in New
that they're
Mexico
just a
in the
good
summer of
person overall.
2021 as a golf management
Yeah,
intern. So
it's
also tell
hard
me
to put on
about
pen and
that, but
paper, and I would say
also
every
how did
coach
you end
says
up
that. But
in this
yeah, I mean,
internship?
we're
You
looking
went
for
to school in
somebody
Georgia
that
and you interned in New
understands what it
Mexico. So
means
how did you
for
end up,
me here to be in
spending the summer of
general, like what it
2021 in New
means to
Mexico?
represent your university, wherever that
Yeah,
is. I mean,
so
obviously, I was a
originally
Bison,
my
now
summer
I'm a
plans
Blazer,
was
and
that I was
I'll
going to study
obviously always
abroad
play Blazer at
in
this point. But
Cannes, France that summer.
yeah, I would say
Okay.
we
And
look
they
for obviously
canceled it because of
character
COVID
and
last minute.
girls
And
that
I was kind
understand
of
the importance of the
devastated
classroom
because I've
work. And
always
yeah,
I
I
grew
mean,
up, I was born in Lincoln,
it's
Nebraska,
really
but I
hard.
only lived
It's
there for a few years.
so hard to put on
And
pen and
so
paper.
all of my life was spent in Georgia.
But I'd
That's
say
where I've grown up.
character,
That's where I've spent every
the way you
summer.
treat your
That's
parents,
where
like all those
you
little
did
things that
everything.
add up to show that you're a real
So I was kind of
personality.
ready just to see different
I
parts of the
I
world.
would
My
say
family grew up traveling,
I would say
so
almost all my
I always
girls do
kind of
have
knew
a
I
lot
wanted to do
of
different things.
personality
So
as
when my
well.
study abroad got canceled, I kind of just sat down and
So
was
I'm
like,
very
well,
interested, I'm going to
what
be
do I do?
doing with all the
I
coaches that I'm going to be
not
talking
taking
about
any
and
summer
interviewing the
classes
upcoming
this
season
summer
starting,
because
just in
I'm
about
already
two
up to
weeks or so.
date. I
So how does your
It
team
was
look
kind of
going into
COVID
the
was still
upcoming
happening. I
season?
was like, I don't really
Are there
want to
any
sit in my
expectations that you
apartment
have for
and
your
do
team? Or are
nothing
you
all
just,
summer. I don't really
excited
want to go to my
with today, being the
hometown.
first day of classes
So I really just
and the
got
season just
online
getting
one day and
started?
started
Any
applying for
expectations, or are you just
internships.
excited to begin the
And
season as a
I
coach?
definitely went into that internship
Yeah, you know
100%
what? That's a
blindsided.
legit question,
I
man.
was a naive sophomore in college, so I applied for this
I
internship
don't like to
and
put
I was offered the
expectations.
position on the spot. I said
More
yes.
than
I didn't
anything,
even know where
I
it
want
was in
us
New
to
Mexico
compete
when I
and
accepted
compete
the
well
position. I hadn't even done
as a
enough research, but
class.
I said yes to this position.
And yeah,
My
I
dad
mean,
thought that I was
we
crazy, but
had
he was super
we've already
happy
had at
for
least
me
one
because he
practice,
was
and
like,
I got giddy on the
you know,
first
like this
tee
is
and just
what you
told the
want to
girls how
do. And
excited
then
I
once you look more
was.
into it, we're like, okay, this is a really good position.
Yeah, just
But
the excitement that builds up.
yeah, it was
This time
really
of year,
just
it's my
a
new year.
spontaneous
Everybody
decision
celebrates
of
the new year
I
in
don't want to
January,
be
and
in Georgia. Like I want to do something
see, I
that's
don't
going to
celebrate
propel
the new
my
year in
future, but
January because
also
I thought
something
my
that
new
I
year
want
is
to do.
today because classes
So
started, and
that's how I ended up
it's a
out
new
there.
year
So
for
then
us because
I made
we
this
run 23
decision.
to
I packed up my
24.
bags the middle of
And
end
so
of
yeah,
May
just the new
and I
year and
drove, my dad and I
the
drove all the way
excitement
out to New
of all that, and
Mexico
they get to hang out the
and
heater, and
I started this
everybody gets to
position
try out their new
that I
classes,
really
and we
didn't know
have a
what I
lot
was
of new
doing.
people, so they get to run around
But
the new
yeah, so once I
buildings,
started there, and
and
I
they ask
think
a lot of great
that was probably
questions.
the
So
most
I think
formative
it's
time of my life. And
just
I
the
would
buzz of the
say that
excitement. Like I said,
over and
driving in
over and
today, you could
over
just
again
tell everybody's
because
smiling, everybody's
that was
happy.
the first time that I was really
We'll
on
see what
my
it feels
own.
like in October,
So
but
I had that whole
I feel
summer of
pretty
like
confident we'll
I
still
had
be
to
playing
support
pretty good golf in
myself
October.
financially and do everything that I wanted, but also I was
the final
now in
question
a
I have for you
position
today is,
where I was
you know,
completely away
what
from
is your
my
favorite thing
parents.
about
Like
being
if
head
anything
women's golf
happened,
coach at UAB, and
they
what is your
weren't
favorite
around.
thing about
Like
UAB, and
if something happened, my
what
dad
makes
just
UAB
couldn't like
such a
hop in the
special
car and
place?
be there in 2 hours, or I couldn't just be home in
And it's
2 hours.
home.
And
I don't know
now
how
I
else
also have
to
2 hour
put it
time
for
change to
me.
think
Like I
about.
said, I grew up an hour from here.
It was definitely really difficult. I
Came
think
here a
my
lot
first
for
couple
just
of days
various things
there,
over the
in
years,
full
and
transparency, I think the first
just
like 3 days I
home.
cried every day. And I was like,
But
I hate it here.
to be
I
a
don't want to be
Blazer
here. I
and to
hate
get to
it.
come
I'm
back and
miserable. I don't know
you get done being a
anyone.
student athlete,
Didn't know a
don't
single
expect
soul except for
you,
my
don't- you
boss.
don't
That was the only person that
expect
I'd
to get to
known.
come back and put your
And
uniform back on. Like I never
after
expected
that,
to get to come
then
back
I
and put
started
this,
transitioning into it a little
phenomenal
more. I
logo
think
back
it was just
on.
a
You
lot of
just
being
don't.
scared and nervous. But then after that,
And so
I
to get to
really
do that
I look back
to
and
put it
that
on
was probably one
proudly
of the
for
best
another
summers of my
tournament.
entire life.
When you take your
And I
your
had so
jersey
much
off for the
fun and
last
I
time,
grew so much as a
the odds
person
of you getting to
and
put it
as a
back on is
leader.
just so
And
rare.
my role there,
And
it
so
was
to
kind
get
of
to come
cool.
back and put
We
this
had
back
5
on
interns
and
that
get to
summer.
proudly
And
be
so
a
all of us
Blazer
kind of had our little projects to work on throughout the
and show what
summer.
these
And
girls what
like
being a
my
Blazer
summer
is.
projects as an
It's just
intern
it's
was
indescribable
their
for
kids
me.
camps and their women's
This
programs.
place is
And
just
so that's
special.
where I really
Again, like I
like
said,
got
it's
to
home.
learn
It's
to
where my
lead, and
diploma
I
is from.
learned
It's
how
just
to
it means
fail
so
as a
much
leader
more. Like
because I definitely
I'm
did
getting to
that
see people
a
I saw
lot.
8, 9 years ago. They're back,
And
and my
um
advisor's now helping my
yeah, but that's
freshmen.
really what
My
gave
business
me the
advisor's
love of
helping my
golf again.
freshmen, and
And I was like, okay,
um,
like this
they're
is
like,
really cool to
you
like
knew Coach back in
truly
the
be in
day,
this
which is
position
ironic.
and
It's not been that long
know that
ago,
I'm
but
making
just all those
relationships
little
and I'm
things. It's
impacting
just
people and I'm
it's
getting to meet people.
again to get to
But
put the
I
green and
also get
gold
to
back
do
on, man.
all of
I
this through the
just
game of
it's
golf
such a
because I
blessing,
got to do that in
and I'm
kids
just so
camps when I
thankful
was
that
like watching the kids
in the
come and learn every
next two
single
years I'll
day.
have
And then I
6
got to
girls that'll
even
get
like
the same
teach them
diploma I've
lessons.
got, and
And
um, yeah,
I
it's
then
just
got to like teach
it's just
women's
incredible.
programs and
It
say
just
like
softens
these are
my
all the
heart.
things that I've once struggled with in the game and now I can help
Thank
you
you,
through
Coach
it.
Lolly. I really
So that
appreciate you
that was
taking the
definitely my
time
most
out of your
formative
busy
summer and
schedule
just
to
an area that taught
chat with me
me
today, and I
a
really
new
enjoyed our
love for the game
conversation
of
today.
golf and a new
You sound like an
appreciation
incredible
for the
coach, and you have
game.
a really
And
interesting
yeah,
story.
all because I
So
decided to just move
I think
there on a whim because I didn't want to
UAB
be
is
in
super very
Georgia.
proud to have you as their coach, and
I
I
think
wish
that
you and
was
your team
definitely like a
the best
very
of luck this season going
propelling
forward.
thing for my
Listen, man, the
future
pleasure's all mine. Thank
and
you so much for
is
having me,
definitely
and
one of the biggest things
got
that
really
helped me get to where I
excited.
am
They can
today.
obviously follow us along on
So you ran kids camps
Instagram
as
or
you
our sports
mentioned.
page. But
Did
as
running kid
always,
camp
go
give you
Blazers.
the passion for working with juniors? Given now that you work with the Hawaii State Junior Golf Association, and then given that you've run kids camps and you work for the Hawaii State Junior Golf Association, can you just tell me about how much you enjoy getting to work with junior golfers?
Honestly, that I think is the best part of my job and the best part of any of the jobs I've had in the past. Um, when I got to run the kids camps, it was always really stressful because the first couple ones I was learning, and then about midway through midway through that internship, my boss had come to me and he was like, "We've got 45 kids signed up for camp. We've never had more than like 15. What do we do?" And I was baffled because I was like, "Why is my boss asking me what to do? Like I'm the intern." Um, and so it was really cool because then that really let me just like flourish as a person and realize like, okay, what are all the things I need to plan? Like now I need to think of a week's worth of games for 45 kids to keep them entertained, to keep them energized. And you realize that in a lot of these positions there is that a high level of stress of like there is so much more planning for things that are not golf related than the things that are actually golf related, which can be really difficult whenever you're thinking about it. You're like, oh, I love the game of golf, I want to work in it all the time. Well, now sometimes 95% of the work you do actually isn't on the golf course and actually isn't directly in the game of golf. So that has just been a challenge, and I think that will always be a challenge in any golf positions. But that was one that I learned really early on, and I definitely always figured out how worth it was. That when you realize that maybe that's not the first thing, but it made everything worth it when I got to transition and experience what it was working with all the kids, because they always come to you with this joy that's on their face and they're so excited to be there. And you see the 7 to 10 year olds now in our organization and they just shot 95, 100, and they're coming off the course and it's like, how did you play? And all they can care about is, did you see that goose on the last hole? Like I almost hit him. And they just have this joy about it that it's like, for them, it's that number means nothing. All it means is that they just had fun. And I think it brings back that light. And then you like do see, like, as the kids get older, it's like the kids who come off the course and it's like, even when they had a bad day, sometimes just to have that conversation with them and say, well, okay, maybe you didn't like play your best, but like, what did you learn? What went right? And like just getting to build those relationships is really important. And I think that's been like is one of the best parts of my job, that I do get to like talk to these kids and know more about them and say like, hey, like I'm not just planning your tournaments, but I'm also like here to invest in your future and like help you do that. So for all the long hours that I work and all the time that I spend putting together documents or contacting people and doing so many things that actually like isn't related to the game of golf, makes it so much worth it makes it so worth it when I get to that event and I get to like see all these kids and talk to them and like hear what they're doing and see how they're playing. So yeah, it's definitely worth it, and it's definitely one of the biggest driving factors in what I do.
Nice. Something else interesting that you did while you're at, Georgia for college, is for over 2 years, you were a program director for Young Women's Christian Association. So I'm
Mhm.
interested to know, can you tell me about, this association? And can you tell me, what was it like for you to be program director? Like, what were your duties and responsibilities being, program director?
Yeah, so it's kind of fun. I actually started that position my sophomore year of college, and I was just an after school counselor. Um, I don't really know what I was doing, but yeah, I was just like, okay, like I needed a job, I needed something that fit in my schedule. And so that's what I started working as. And then after like 6 months, they were like, hey, we need actually like a program director for this school to run this entire program. And, I luckily got promoted to that position, which was really cool. But my role there was again to oversee the entire program. So I then worked to get all our other after school counselors. And so I was then, okay, now you bring counselors in. And rather than me being the counselor that's overseeing all the kids, I'm now overseeing the kids, but I'm overseeing the people who are also working with the kids. But again, that was another just really fun job because once you got everything planned and lined up for the day, it was just, okay, let's really just hang out with these kids. Like let's just pour into them and say, how was their day? What are you working on in school? What do you do when you're not in school? What sports do you play? And just really getting to learn about all of them. But yeah, so I worked for 2 years as their program director. So it's pretty much I was assigned a school and I stayed at that school for 2.5, almost close to 3 years. But for a little over 2 years, I was their program director and I pretty much created all the programs. So I was like, what are the activities we're going to do every week? Who are the counselors that are going to be leading these activities? Um, all of that. And then I was also, of course, the main point of communication between the school and then between the parents and all the kids we had in our organization. And then also our organization, because we were a third party. So we came into the school to build this program. So now it was, again, a lot. You learn that like the higher up in any role you get, it's all about learning to communicate and learning to make sure that like you're not only like managing people, but like I think it's better to say like communicating with people and learning how to work with other people. And so that was definitely a role that I think really helped me be ready for the role that I'm in now, because it was a lot of similar fields and similar things that I'm doing, except for where that one was just more like activities all across the board. Now this one's like very golf specific.
Mhm. That's awesome. Yeah, even, in golf and outside of golf, you always work with kids, so that's really amazing. That you found, passion working with, juniors and kids. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a few more questions. You touched on, when you're in college, even after college, you just knew that you wanted to work in golf. So, I'm interested to know, when you were in college and even after college, how did you know that you wanted to work, in golf? Because, most kids, when they're, in college, a lot of people don't know what they want to do, but you were pretty firm that you knew that, you wanted to work in golf. So, how did you know that, you wanted to work in golf?
I I think I like it was one of those things that I was always really like my dad and I were really close growing up. And so he, like I kind of mentioned, he kind of always forced that on me. And then I also played soccer growing up. And then when I got to high school, and my dad once made a point to me, and he was like, okay, you have really bad days at soccer and you don't care. But like you had a terrible day today and like you didn't care at all. But like you have like one mishap on the golf course and your world like implodes. And he was like, that means you care. Act like it. And I really remember that conversation and realizing like, oh, I really do care about the sport. And I think the one thing that always like made me care so much was that um just all the things that I learned from it, because growing up, of course, like being a girl in rural Georgia, there weren't a lot of girls. I didn't play golf with the girls. I played with the guys. And if I didn't play with the guys, I played on my own or I played with my dad. So I would definitely say just the different experiences and the ways that like it taught me a lot about not only um, the sport itself, but it taught me how to talk with other people. It taught me to um, just communicate in different ways, and it taught me to build relationships with other people, and it taught me leadership, like how to step up, and how like when something goes wrong and you're on the golf course, like you have to fix that yourself. Like you have to hold yourself accountable and you have to hold yourself honest. And so I really appreciated all the qualities that the game of golf consists of and what it makes you learn. And I just really loved that. And I loved all the things I gained from it. And I think one thing too is that my dad loved the game of golf. And that was his biggest pride and joy. And he always saw me working in the field. So I think it was partially his dream and his dream for me to work in the game of golf. And then that sooner or later became my dream. And I think it was a lot of his love for the game that taught me that. And when I just got the different experiences and I was like, wow, like when I finally transitioned to working in the game, I was like, I love this so much more and I can pour into it so much more. And the things that we bonded over then changed. And I got to just see it from a whole new perspective and a whole new light when I luckily was in high school and I had coaches that were like, hey, like, come and help us volunteer or like come work these summer camps with us. And so when I got to see this new side of the game that wasn't always, oh, I have to play and I have to play well and oh, I have to keep myself when it wasn't always about me, I think that's when I was like, oh, I really love this game and I love the things that I can learn and I can do with it. So I think that was like the biggest proponent for me was reasoning number one. And then the reasoning number two was just that my dad was always really passionate about it and that made me really passionate. And that was just where our relationship always centered around. And unfortunately, my dad got sick while I was in college and he passed away during my senior year. And so I also felt that losing him and like his dream that he had then became a dream for me. And so I was like, I know all the things that he didn't get to do was something that I wanted to do. And I wanted to do that for him. And so especially after like losing him, it was something that just like gave me this knowledge that it's like, there's never a doubt in my mind that like, this is where I'm supposed to be and that this is what I truly care about. Because I also have learned that, and not even like I've learned several times, but if you're doing something and you're not passionate about it, like, yeah, it'll pay the bills, but that's not what life is about. Like life isn't about just paying the bills. Life is about like enjoying what's happening and like what's going on in front of you. And I think that's like one thing that golf taught me. And I also saw that with the game of golf, that it's like with my future, I want to do something that isn't just show up so I can make money and then live my life. I knew that golf was my way, like working in the game of golf was my way of saying, all right, like I'm going to show up and I'm going to live my life and I'm going to carry out something that I'm passionate about. And that will allow me to then pay the bills and to keep doing this every day and get to do other things. So, you know, in a lot of different reasons, it was that it's all I'd ever kind of known, but it was all I ever kind of knew because somewhere along the line, I just became really passionate about it. And I just knew that like my passion, what was going to propel me or like help me propel forward. So once I found that passion and I found that love in different ways, I knew how important the game was to me. And once I had my sights set on it, like there was never any turning around. And that's exactly what I did because jokingly enough, I had a friend point it out to me probably a month or two ago. And she goes, you know, like we were on the bus one day in college and you told me what you wanted to do. And you said, yeah, like one day I want to just like run golf tournaments and like help like plan them. And, you know, like, I don't think that's what I want to do forever, but like, that's what you're looking for out of college. And you told me all about your position that you have now, but you didn't even know that was your position. Like you didn't know that's what you were going to do. You were like a junior in college and you were telling me what you were going to do. And now I'm living exactly what I told my friend I was going to do. So I think it was, for me, it was all about finding the passion and the love and then genuinely saying like, this is what I want. This is what I'm going to work towards. And I think that's why I never changed or wavered in how I got to where I am now.
Nice. Well, I can really hear the passion that you have for working in golf and, you know, working with juniors, and you're passionate enough that you moved all the way from Georgia to Hawaii to pursue, you know, your dreams of working in golf. So that's really awesome. Really think, you know, working with the Hawaii State Junior Golf Association, really making an impact. on these juniors, lives. And so I think you're doing great things. So I have two more questions I wanted to, ask. So given that you work in golf, I'm interested to know, what do you enjoy doing, outside of work for fun, do you, golf for fun, or do you do other things? Just what do you
Um,
do for fun outside of, work?
so outside of work, I don't play golf as much as I would like to because I spend so much time at the golf course.
Sure.
I do watch a lot of golf, so I'm always up to date on the tournaments that are happening, what's going on.
Okay.
It was crazy to watch Scotty win this past weekend at the Players again, back to back.
Yeah.
But when I'm not, a lot of it's pretty much about my community. So I love to like go to the gym and work out. That's a big thing. I'm really involved with my church here in Hawaii, so I do a lot with them and making sure I stay involved there. I've been playing a lot of pickleball. I hike. I go to the beach. Spend a lot of time outside, but it's pretty much just spending time with the people that I don't get to see every day at my job and the people that are in my community. And I think that's like the best, always been some of the best ways to fill my time whenever I'm not working.
Nice. So you mentioned, being involved with your church. Is faith important to you? And if it is, just tell me a little bit about, why faith is important to you.
Yeah, I would definitely say my faith is probably one of the biggest things in my life.
Okay.
And I think a lot of it is just, first, that was how I was raised. Like, it's kind of crazy that that's all I ever known. So that's kind of just what you live with. But, in recent years, as I've gotten older, I've really watched like the Lord work in my life. And there's no doubt about it that like even just being in the position is like his grace and his mercy showing me that. But a lot of that is that, I mentioned that I lost my dad when I was a senior in college and we lost him to cancer. It was really aggressive and it was really, really difficult to watch him go through that. And so, I think, faith has always been important, but when you watch the most important person that you deem in your life lose their life, and then a lot of everything changes for me, you know, I walked through some really hard things, but I was never alone. And the Lord made sure that I knew that. So I think the biggest thing for me and like my faith is why it's important is that, when you can walk through some hard stuff and still come out on top, like that's not you, like that's God. And like, I think that's really what showed me that. And that's also why I get to sit here at this desk in Hawaii and live this job or work this job and live this life that I never once dreamed or imagined that I would live. And I think it's because of my faith and because God has given me so many blessings. And not only that he's just always given everything to me, but I've trusted him when things weren't good. And I've trusted that he was going to provide even when I didn't think there was anything else left in my life to be taken away. And when I thought there was nothing, like he promised me more and like he's shown that. And so, yeah, my faith is really important to say that like God is good and God is gracious and like, it's a test and it's hard, but it's important and it never will change. And yeah.
Nice. Yeah, you've gone through a lot of hard things in your life, like losing a family member or, not getting to play, college golf, but really commend you, for sticking to your faith, just, showing resilience through, the tough times in your life. And yeah, you got rewarded with this amazing job at Hawaii. So yeah. So final question for you, Allison, I just wanted to touch on. Can you just tell me, how much do you enjoy, getting to work with juniors, especially, how much do you enjoy getting to work for the Hawaii State Junior Golf Association? Just, tell me about your enjoyment about, your current position.
Honestly, I love it. Like,
Mhm.
there's not even words to describe the fact that I'm 23 and I live in Hawaii and I was a kid, like one day dreaming of this job that was like, oh, like I want to run tournaments and work with juniors and do like, everything that was once like, you know, you always talk about it, but you never think you would do it. And now I'm doing it. And it's just really cool. Like, I love this organization for what they stand for. And I think that's always going to be one of the most important things that you can get a job anywhere. But if you don't align with what you're doing, because it's like one of those things that you could be with a golf organization. And if that golf organization didn't also align with me, I don't think my passion for golf would matter because we're not going to be on the same page. We're not going to try and produce these same results. And um, so I think that's one of the most important things is that I really align with this organization and love the ways that it's not about producing the best golfers. It is like we want to produce the best golfers, but one thing that I've really learned from Mary B, who's just the best person in the world, is that we want to produce leaders. We want to produce kids that, you know, they're going to be great at golf, but they're also going to be great people. And they're going to be people that impact their communities, that care about those that are around them, that do things that matter to them. And I think, to kind of jump back to the previous question of like why I'm passionate about this, is that my community and, you know, my faith, like those are important. And like those people that walked with me through really dark times, and the Lord placed in my life in those really dark times, were because of some of the things that I grew up with, like my junior golf organizations and local people from our country club. And so I now get to be on the opposite side of that and get to pour into these people here and get to know these people and help produce these leaders for tomorrow. And I think that's one of the most important things, is that I now get to be on the other side of the table and really say, like, who are these leaders that we're creating, and who are these juniors that like are just great kids. And I think that's the best thing about this organization, is we don't see them for their handicap. We don't see them for how many holes in one they've gotten. We don't see them. It's not about that. And I don't think it ever will be. It'll be about producing high level golf to create leaders and to create, you know, kids who probably will be leaders in the golf world, but will also be leaders in business, and will be leaders in churches, or, you know, just different organizations that we're going to see. And I think that's like the coolest thing, is that it really aligns with like who I am as a person, and it allows me to be the person that I am, and I don't have to compromise on anything. And I also then get to in turn do what I love. So maybe it's not necessarily my position specific that I love, but rather who this organization allows me to be, and who this, like what this organization is. And I think that's like how much I enjoy this job, and like why I love this job. And I think that'll speak, like that's my best way to speak on where I am in this position and why I've stayed in it.